Brandon, what is it with TV series and the rich people genre, right? I think we had talked about Your Friends and Neighbors, which I just watched the season finale. Very good show. I think there's a new show on Netflix that I haven't watched called Sirens. It's a whole thing right now with, I don't know, watching rich people be bad.
Yeah, maybe it's because that's a life that I have, know nothing about whatsoever. So, you watch TV to kind of go to a different world. So that's a totally different world to me, this rich people world. But yeah, I watched My Friends and Neighbors, highly recommend, with John Hamm on Apple TV, and also that Sirens TV. I also watched it. So it's pretty good too. Kind of like a satire, comedy, drama. Both of them I recommend though.
Okay. I may have to look into Sirens. I wasn't sure what to make of it from the previews.
Yeah, like if you watch White Lotus season 2, it's got an actress from there. I think she's really really good. Really, the whole cast I think is really really solid. Yeah, it's funny, it's drama, it's got a little bit of mystery. I think it's definitely worth watching.
Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I didn't prep you for this question, but what is your favorite, what I call rich people being bad show? Because you've got Your Friends and Neighbors, you've got Sirens now, you got White Lotus. I think that's in that category. Industry, Succession. I'm sure there are others that I'm not thinking of offhand. What stands out to you?
I think all of them are great. All of them are worth watching. But for me, easily, hands down, it's Succession. I think Succession was the best TV show since Game of Thrones, like overall. So I would have to go with Succession.
Welcome back to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, publisher of Daily Thunder, and I'll be your host today. Alongside me, as always, is Daily Thunder beat writer Brandon Rahbar. Brandon, how are you doing in these few days of relaxation before the NBA Finals?
Yeah, it's been fun to be able to just kick back and watch, stress-free basketball, watching the Pacers and the Knicks. I was kind of hoping it would go 7, but look, I think the Pacers 100% deserve to be in the NBA Finals, and I think it's going to be actually kind of cool that there's going to be 2 small market teams. I know there's going to be some media members up in arms about having to go to Indianapolis and OKC and wanting the big markets in there. I love it. Way to go, small markets. Good job, Pacers. Good job, Thunder.
Well, we are going to preview the NBA Finals on today's show. But before we get there, we should recap Games 4 and Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals, because the last time we spoke was after the Thunder got absolutely drubbed by the Timberwolves in Game 3, and the Thunder had a bounce-back game. And I think we both expected that game to be close. And it was. What were your takeaways from Game 4?
Game 4, I thought, was one of the most impressive games from this Thunder team all playoffs. And it's funny because they've had a 50-point blowout win. They've had, multiple 30-point blowout wins, a 40-point so they've obviously had better games where they just dominated teams. But to bounce back from that 42-point loss in Minnesota, where if the Wolves win that game, all of a sudden this is a 2-2 series. They had the momentum from winning both games. And I thought what was so impressive was this wasn't a game where we saw the typical Thunder, avalanche where they rattle off 15 points in a row and they go up 20 points and kind of nurse that lead. This was a game where they were up by like 8 and the Wolves would hit a couple big shots. The crowd would get into it. It seemed like they were maybe making a run, but then the Thunder score 5. And then the Wolves score 4. Then the Thunder score 7. Like the Thunder were up pretty much like 1 point to 9 points for most of this game. And I thought it was so impressive and so like composed and mature and all those things. They always had an answer. And the fact that it was once again Shea, Dub, and Chet, the big 3 that made this happen on the road in a game that wasn't a must win, but it felt like a must win. I thought it was so impressive to win that Game 4, given the circumstances and given the way the game played out.
Totally agree that it was felt like a must win, because a 2-2 series tie feels very different than 3-1, especially if the Wolves protected their home court. And in one of those games, they won by 40 plus points. But I think you're right pointing out the big 3 of SGA, J-Dub, and Chet. They're the reason that the Thunder won that game, and SGA had a fantastic game. He nearly had a triple-double, scored 40 points, but both J-Dub and Chet really came through. And that was really the whole series. It was a lot of SGA, Dub, and Chet.
Yeah, and I think that is the greatest thing for the Thunder moving forward, that, when you're looking at the future of this team and people are talking about second apron and how are they going to afford all these guys? Well, first of all, everybody is signed for next season. This whole team is coming back. Plus, they get Nikola Topic, a projected top 3 to 5 pick in the draft, coming back and making his debut next season. So you don't have to worry about next season. And then the season after that, like, these guys are signed for the most part. But look, the Thunder are going to sign the big three, and whatever future, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, if you're worried about that, the greatest thing you could see happen is this big three at 26, 24, and 23 make these steps, grow together as a unit, and be the reason why the Thunder have been winning these close games, these clutch games, or even these dominating games on the backs of these big three. Because it feels like as long as you keep these three together, which the Thunder are going to keep these three together, the Thunder's runway for success, for sustained success over a long period, is sky high as long as these guys are in OKC and healthy. So I just think it's such a great sign for the Thunder that they're winning because of these three guys, and they are improving as a unit game by game.
Well, let's move on to game 5 in Oklahoma City. This one also, to me, felt kind of like a must-win. It would be a really big opportunity for the Wolves to capture momentum if they could steal one on the road. They would have game 6 at home, and then you're looking at a winner-take-all game 7, and I don't think either team wants to be in that position, but especially the Thunder with a 3-1 lead. And of course, we know what happened in 2016. So this one was really important for the Thunder, I think, to come out with a sense of urgency. They did. They were all over the Wolves from the jump.
It was so impressive. Like, if you had any worry, any sort of doubt, like, hey, the Wolves this is a closeout game. Anthony Edwards, they're going to come out desperate. They're going to throw a big punch. The Thunder quieted any doubts in the very beginning. It was funny because the Wolves took a 3-0 lead, and like the first 2 minutes, the Thunder didn't score. So it was like 3-0 for the first 2 minutes. And then the Thunder rattled off an 11-0 run, and it just felt like it was over. The crowd was amazing in game 5. And the team matched that, like, on court. It was so impressive. 26-9 after the first quarter. And it just felt like after the first quarter, it was like, yeah, this team is going to the finals. They are punching the ticket tonight. They are taking care of business. That's the thing about this team. They're young. Yeah, I get it. But they don't act like a young team. Like, you always talk about, like, hey, you can't let go of the rope. You've got a chance to close this out in a game 5. Do it. Take care of business. Don't get into any sort of deal where you got to go back to Minnesota and then maybe a game 7 where anything can happen. They just took care of business. The defense was just smothering, suffocating. I know the Wolves wanted that game. Obviously, it's a closeout, but they just couldn't do anything against this Thunder defense.
So did you have any fear at all when Minnesota made a little bit of a run in that third quarter and got it down to, what was it, like 22, 23 points in the third?
I didn't. I still felt really, really good, because we've seen this team. Like, the Wolves were going to make some sort of run at some point. And it was funny because you did feel a nervous energy in the building when the Wolves got it down to like 23. And like, they're still at 23. And there's like 15 minutes of game time left in this game. And then Shea had that. He swiped his cousin, Nikhil, goes and hits that bucket that kind of like stopped the bleeding there for a second, and it kind of felt like a sigh of relief from the Thunder crowd. The Wolves, they made a little push, but I never had any doubt. It was just funny the Thunder were so dominant that night that the Wolves getting it to like 23 points, with a few minutes left in the third quarter, was nerve wracking, but that just kind of shows how dominant they were.
And then the Thunder responded after that. They ended up continuing to stretch the lead and had the biggest lead of the game late in the fourth quarter at 39 points. So as dominant as the Wolves were in game 3, arguably the Thunder were just as dominant in this one.
Yeah. And we always hear no team ever wants to go home. Closeout games are the toughest to win because the team is desperate. But The Thunder looked like the more desperate team. Like they were the one that was like every single possession, the energy, the effort, going for loose balls, the defense. The Wolves almost looked like they kind of gave up when the Thunder went on that 11-3 run. Yeah, they made a push in the third quarter. Every team's going to make a push. You're going to make some buckets. But it just felt like the Thunder were the more desperate team, even though they were the team that was up 3-1.
Yeah, and I think what was really impressive about the way the Thunder handled the series against the Timberwolves overall is the way they shut down both Edwards and Randall over the series, generally speaking. Now, Ant had a couple of good games. He had 32 in, I think, game 2, and of course he had 30 in game 3. But otherwise, I mean, he was almost invisible in the other games, including in games 4 and game 5. Randall had a terrible series overall against the Thunder. I think a lot of maturity, and I think the team grew a lot in the Nuggets series. You could really feel that, and of course the way that the Thunder came out of games 1 and 2 against the Wolves. But yeah, the response in games 4, and then just slamming the door in game 5. This team has grown up so much in this playoff series, or in the playoffs overall.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so funny because look back at that Nuggets series. And, after games 1 and games 3, which, the Thunder seemed like they had those games in hand, and the Nuggets won those clutch games. And, J-Dub had at that point been a little bit up and down. And so the big question marks were like, oh, this Thunder team is too young and inexperienced. They can't win close games. They can't win games in the clutch. The championship experience of Jokic, the Nuggets, is going to come through. And J-Dub, you can't rely on him to be a second scorer. So that's going to be the downfall of the Thunder. That seems so long ago because the Thunder have won clutch game after clutch game since then against both the Nuggets and the Wolves. And J-Dub has been excellent ever since then. He has been a true second star, and Chet has been a true third star since then. So it's just kind of funny to look back even at the last series, at the beginning of that last series, and see how things have flipped. And I think that just shows how much this Thunder team has grown in such a short time.
Well, SGA had his MVP season, and then he was also awarded Western Conference Finals MVP. So he's kind of going 2 for 2 on the MVP awards. Maybe talk to the listeners about Shea and the series that he's had, in the playoffs that he's had. I mean, he's really come up, I think, and demonstrated he is the MVP.
100%. He's been the best player in these playoffs. I know that, Tyrese Halliburton has been excellent, obviously. Jalen Brunson, I think, has been great. Jokic had a really nice playoffs, obviously. But it's so funny because looking back on the Grizzlies series, Shea, by his standards, those first few games, he wasn't as efficient as he normally is. And so, there was these hot takes Shea, is underperforming in the playoffs. Zoom out now, look at the big picture, look at Shea's numbers throughout these playoffs against the Grizzlies, Nuggets, and Timberwolves. He has been excellent. He has been the engine that has made this team so dominant. It's basically this Thunder team defense is elite, and Shea has been the MVP, and then Dub and Chet have been the second, third stars. It's such a winning formula. That's how the Thunder wins games. Shea being the MVP, elite defense, and Dub and Chet. And then any given night, other guys will step up, other guys will hit shots, and they'll score enough. But it starts with Shea. And looking big picture, he won MVP this year. The Thunder won 68 games. He won the scoring title. He won the Western Conference Finals MVP. If the Thunder were to go on and win the finals and Shea would win finals MVP, we are talking about one of the all-time greatest individual seasons in NBA history.
I like the sound of that. There's still a series to play, and certainly the way that Shea's been playing, I think you have to expect that he's going to have another great series.
Yeah. And look, it's a 2-game sample size, and the Pacers have played so much better in the playoffs than they did the regular season. Really, they played excellent basketball since the beginning of 2025. But in those 2 games, Shea's numbers are absurd. His numbers against the Pacers and the regular, I think he's averaging 39 points on 71% true shooting, something like that. So he has dominated the Pacers in the 2 regular season games. Andrew Nembhard is a very nice defender. They've got a nice rim protector, Miles Turner, and they play really smart team defense, but they don't have Jaden McDaniels. They don't have a Rudy Gobert. They don't have the personnel that the Wolves do. And that zone defense with like Aaron Gordon and Jokic and packing the paint and what the Nuggets did, with that zone defense, I don't think the Pacers have that. So I am just assuming, I'm not saying, the Thunder are going to dominate the Pacers or anything like that. That's not, but I'm saying Shea, I have a hard time not seeing Shea have a great series against this Pacers team.
Well, let's go ahead and look ahead to the Thunder Pacers NBA Finals. First, feels really good to say Thunder in the NBA Finals. I think those were the expectations at the beginning of the season. And I think even when we were previewing even the most optimistic expectations about how the Thunder would perform this season, they have exceeded those expectations. There's that 40-20 rule that Phil Jackson has, right? That a true contender's got to win 40 games before losing 20. Well, the Thunder have won 80 games before losing 20 games, just an absolutely insane statistic. And so every point this season, the Thunder have exceeded expectations. So first, just feels really good that they are here. They've met and exceeded all those expectations.
Yeah, it's crazy because most people predicted Thunder Celtics in the NBA Finals preseason. Like that was the most popular pick. And here they are. And yet, like you said, even though people predicted them to be here, they still exceeded expectations. Nobody expected 68 wins. Nobody expected breaking the all-time point differential record in NBA history. And they did this with Chet missing half the season, with Hardenstein missing, 20-plus games, with Caruso missing 20-plus games, Jada missing multiple games. Like a lot of the guys missed a lot of time. And they just dominated. And this dominance has continued in the postseason. Look, the Nuggets, that was a 7-game series. Thunder went 4-3 versus the Nuggets, but they went 8-1 versus the Wolves and Grizzlies combined. And the point differential in the postseason has been crazy as well. So it's been really, really impressive to see the Thunder not just meet finals expectations, but here we are in the NBA Finals. And you can say they have easily outperformed and exceeded those lofty expectations.
Absolutely. And there is this quote from Sam Presti while the team was in the rebuild about how he wanted it to feel like an arrival when the team finally kind of reached its potential. And, last season was a great precursor of what could happen. Got the number 1 seed, but, they got the number 1 seed in a tiebreaker. This season was an arrival for sure. Like they dominated the season and had a fantastic season. That compares to very few in history.
Yeah, I mean, there's now only 4 teams in NBA history who have gone into the finals winning 80 games. Like this is a historic Thunder team, and they have the MVP. They have one of the greatest defenses of all time. They have the records, the point differential, the wins, all those things to back up that you're truly watching a historic elite team, which is why it's so funny to me, like seeing any sort of complaints whatsoever about two small market teams. People aren't going to watch the Thunder and the Pacers in the finals, NBA's worst nightmare seeing this. This is great basketball. Like the Thunder have been dominant. They deserve to be here. And I think the Pacers do. Like the Pacers, they rolled through the Bucks. Obviously the Bucks were missing Dame for most of that series, but still Giannis, and they still rolled through there. And then they beat a 64-win Cavs team. I know they were beat up a few of those games, but still, that's still a really good team. And then they beat a Knicks team in dominating fashion, really, a Knicks team that upset the Celtics. Everybody expected the Celtics to make it to the finals. The Knicks team beat them, and this Pacers team beat the Knicks, and they did that without home court advantage. So I just think that these two teams are so deserving. And, I know the Pacers fans feel like the Pacers are kind of like the underdog, team of destiny, power of friendship team that nobody expected to be here. But, when you zoom out, big picture, this Thunder team, you could say all those things as well, because this was the team that was called the Black Eye of the league, 3-4 years ago. They were like top 3 in the Wemby sweepstakes odds a couple of years ago, but their rebuild happened so impressively fast. And here they are, overwhelming favorites in the NBA Finals, as the second youngest team ever to make the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and I was going to give the props to the Pacers. They had a solid season. They won 50 games. They did roll through the playoffs. They had the same record in the playoffs as the Thunder do, just 4 losses to get to the NBA Finals. And I think in most years, you would say that they would be a competitive matchup in the finals. But that's not really how the betting markets are set up. The Thunder are overwhelming favorites to win the NBA Finals. They are minus 800, which I think I've seen the notes circulating on social media that no team with odds of that level have ever lost an NBA Finals before. Shea is a minus 650 to win the NBA Finals MVP, which is an overwhelming odds to win the MVP. So despite a really solid season from the Pacers and a really good playoffs to get to where they are, no one's really giving them much of a chance. And we'll get down to kind of the individual breakdowns of the matchups between the two teams. But at first blush, I mean, is it a little bit uncomfortable for you to be? It is to me, if seeing your team, seeing the Thunder with all these narratives about how good they are and that the Pacers don't stand a chance.
Yeah, because I agree. The Pacers have got to feel disrespected by the betting market and by the odds and by what all the talking heads and all the TV shows and all the podcasts and all the blogs are going to say about their chances to win the NBA Finals. And they're going to look and say, we were underdogs to beat the Bucks. We were big underdogs to beat the Cavs. We were underdogs to beat the Knicks. So this is just what we do. We've been the underdogs the entire time, and here we are in the NBA Finals, keep doubting us. So, is that going to put a chip on the shoulder and be extra motivating? Look, you're in the NBA Finals. Everybody's going to be motivated to win. It probably gives you a little bit of extra chip on your shoulder, but yeah, I think that being such big, overwhelming favorites, like the expectations are so much higher on the Thunder. Here they are now as the second youngest team to ever make the NBA Finals and one of the biggest favorites to ever win the NBA Finals. It's this weird kind of anomaly that we're seeing. It's just kind of a strange thing. So yeah, I'm sure Pacers fans are like, yeah, doubt us. This is what we keep doing. But there is a reason though why the Thunder are overwhelming favorites. They did dominate the regular season and they dominated the playoffs in the West, which is obviously the tougher conference. So there is reason to believe, the Thunder should be overwhelming favorites.
Well, let's dive into the analysis of this matchup. So I'm going to give you a couple of different matchups, and you're going to tell me who has the advantage, either Thunder or Pacers. We'll start with the top line stars. Both teams are kind of led by point guard, ball handler, who is the central cog of the offense. You've got SGA on the Thunder side and Halliburton on the Pacers side. Break down that matchup, and who do you think has the advantage?
Tyrese Halliburton is such an incredible playmaker, and he is the engine that, runs this Pacers offense, which has been excellent. He's a great shooter. He's a great passer, and he doesn't turn the ball over. That is going to be one of the biggest keys in this entire series because the Thunder turn the ball over more on defense than any other team, and they score better off of those turnovers than any other team. But the Pacers, and especially Tyrese Halliburton, take care of the ball and don't turn it over. So I think that is a big key to the series. Like, what gives there? Because the Thunder score so much offense off of that. But Tyrese Halliburton, he's not a great defender, but he is like a 10 out of 10 on offense, what he can do, playmaking and scoring and shooting and running the whole thing. But look, Shea is the MVP. I think this season and this playoffs, he has been the best player in the world throughout this season and these playoffs. So I don't really have to explain. He's a two-way player. He's the best scorer in the NBA. His playmaking is underrated. He's such a great all-around player. You got to give advantage to the Thunder, even though Tyrese Halliburton is absolutely beating those overrated allegations. He is climbing the ranks as far as best players in the world. He is right there around top 10 if he's not top 10 now. But Shea is either one or two right now at this moment.
Yeah, and this matchup is actually also a pair of players who their respective teams got by either directly or indirectly trading Paul George. So little interesting tidbit about how both of these teams got these players.
Yes,
next matchup.
It's the Paul George finals. 3 of the 4 All-Stars
really
were were through Paul George trades.
Yeah. Next matchup is sort of the second banana on each team. You got Jalen Williams, J-Dub for the Thunder, and Siakam for the Pacers.
Yeah, so Pascal Siakam has had a great playoffs. He has won an NBA title before as probably the second best player on a team with the Raptors and Kawhi Leonard. He just won Eastern Conference Finals MVP over Tyrese Halliburton, and it looked like Tyrese Halliburton was very surprised by that result. He's been great. He's a great player. He's an all-star. He's a multi-time all-star. He's a great player. But look, J-Dub, he was an all-star this year. He was all-NBA third team this year. He was all-defense second team this year. And he has gotten better in the playoffs. If J-Dub keeps playing the way that we've seen him play in this Timberwolves series and like that Game 7 of the Nuggets series, like ever since then, if he keeps that momentum going, the versatility that he can provide, I might give a slight edge to the Thunder. But I think that this is close enough any given game that we can call this kind of a push. And that's just how much I respect Pascal Siakam, because I think J-Dub is absolutely playing like an all-NBA player right now.
Yeah, and what Siakam does is he does create matchup nightmares, because he kind of plays in that power forward spot, but he can kind of play at multiple levels offensively, solid defender. But J-Dub does the exact same thing, right? He's a matchup nightmare for defenses. So you see this as a pretty good matchup between two players, at least as far as their roles on the team. Kind of a very even matchup between the number two guys on each team.
Yes, exactly. I think they are both excellent number twos on a team and both provide, matchup problems and great overall players. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the third matchup is both the kind of top line interior talent for each team. You got Chet Holmgren for the Thunder and Miles Turner for the Pacers. Who has the edge in this one?
Yeah, so Miles Turner, again, somebody I really, really like. He's been in like trade rumors for years and years and years. And I was like, why isn't anybody going out and getting Miles Turner? He can shoot from three. He can block shots. I really like him, like off the court and like his whole like Legos thing and all that. Like, I just think he's a cool guy and a great player. That said, I think that Chet's versatility, like his ability to do so many different things. They're both great shot blockers, but I think just like overall defense and interior defense and switchability and deterring shots at the rim. As good as Miles Turner is, Chet is a better rim protector and I think better overall defender. And then both of them can shoot from three, but I just like Chet's overall offensive versatility more. So I really like Miles Turner, but I will give the edge to Chet here.
Okay. So the next one is the Oklahoma City offense versus the Indiana defense.
This is what I think pushes the series in the Thunder's favor because obviously we'll get to it. The Pacers offense is elite. The Thunder's defense is elite. But the Thunder's offense is very good, and the Pacers defense is not very good. I think they have some nice individual defenders like Andrew Nembhard and Nesmith and Miles Turner, and they play smart, high IQ team defense. But there's some cracks here I think the Thunder can take advantage of. I think the Thunder, if they play offense like we saw in the Wolves series, the 3-point shooting against the Grizzlies and the Nuggets just wasn't there. If they can shoot like they did against the Wolves, I think they shot around 37.6-ish from three against the Wolves. If they were to do that again, big advantage, Thunder. But I think between Shea, the leaps that we are seeing mid-playoffs from Dub and Chet, and then just any given night, if Caruso or Kaysen or Dort or Isaiah Joe or Wiggins can provide a spark, can provide some offense, I definitely like the Thunder offense over the Indiana defense, and I think that's what could really, really push this series in the Thunder's advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the pretty big difference maker because you would see at points in the Nuggets series where that zone defense really did slow the Oklahoma City offense, and until kind of the later part of that series when the Thunder kind of figured out how to break the zone down, the offense struggled and it would grind to a halt. And then the Wolves certainly had the elite defenders to slow the pace, create more problems for the Oklahoma City offense. But I don't think the Pacers just have the ability to shut down the Oklahoma City's offense consistently the way that some of those other teams were able to do in the playoffs. And Indiana was an average defense at best in the regular season, and that's really what they've been in the playoffs.
Right, exactly. And I don't think that, they'll scheme, they'll come up with, they've got Rick Carlisle, he'll come up with something. But I don't think at the end of the day, you still have to have the personnel. And while they do have, fine individual defenders and they're a smart team and they'll play good team defense, there's only so much you can do, when you don't have, elite perimeter defenders like a Caruso or Dort or McDaniels or Amin Thompson or whoever. They don't have that guy. Nembhard is nice. Neesmith is nice. Miles Turner is a nice rim protector, but they don't have any elite guys on defense. And so, yeah, I think the Thunder can take advantage of that.
Well, as you previewed, the next matchup is the Oklahoma City defense versus the Indiana offense. And I do think the Indiana offense presents some intriguing challenges for the Thunder, kind of like the Nuggets who, they center their offense around Jokic, but a lot of distribution, great passing, great team offense, can beat you in a number of ways. Indiana's offense feels the same way. Halliburton, one of the best distributors in the league, and they have a lot of different players who can put the ball in the basket, and they are shooting incredibly well in this playoff. They've got 7 players currently shooting over 40% in the playoffs. So Oklahoma City's elite defense, Indiana's elite offense. Who has the edge?
Yeah, so I'd said this before when asked about Knicks or Pacers, who would you rather match up with if you're the Thunder? And I said the Knicks, because the Pacers offense has a ceiling and an upside that the Knicks don't have because of that 3-point shooting. And it's, everybody across the team can really, really shoot. And the Thunder defense, the one thing they'll concede is the corner threes. And the Pacers will take and make a lot of those corner threes. And also, I said it earlier, the Thunder thrive on creating turnovers defensively and scoring off those turnovers. And here you have this Pacers team that does not turn the ball over as much as most of these teams do. So something's got to give. Look, I think that the shooting variance and the fact that this team doesn't turn the ball over can lead to some games that the Pacers can win just based on those things. Taking care of the ball and shooting well, getting a hot night from the role players from 3. But I think that the Thunder, they've been so good at slowing down number 1 and number 2 options like Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, like Jokic and Jamal Murray, like Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. or Desmond Bane. I think that will continue. The Pacers offense is very, very good, but the Thunder defense is elite, and they've been elite all season and all playoffs, and I think they'll continue to be. So while I respect the Pacers offense, if I had to give an edge here, I would still give the edge to the Thunder defense.
And you brought up the corner 3 shooting, and I think Oklahoma City's tendencies to clog the paint and then do their best to close out on shooters and kickouts. Do you think the Thunder should adjust that strategy a little bit? Because looking at the statistics, and this kind of stood out to me, as a team, Indiana doesn't score very many points in the paint, right? They rely mostly on their outside shooting, more so than any other team in the playoffs, aside from the Celtics, I think, who shot quite a few 3-pointers in the playoffs. And despite the fact that they don't score a very high percentage of their points in the paint, the Pacers actually have a higher free throw rate than the Thunder. So I don't know. Do you think it's better for the Thunder to sort of stick to the shooters on the outside and sort of force the Pacers to play a different game of trying to drive and get more points in the paint when that's really not their offense?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by how Mark Daigneault plays this. I'm fascinated by how much they play double bigs, because they're quicker when you have another guard in there like Caruso or Casey Wallace, and not Hartenstein to close out on shooters. I'm curious to see if they play more straight up, because you don't have to bend your defense towards a Jokic or towards an Anthony Edwards. And maybe as great as Tyrese Halliburton is, you're almost more afraid of his distributing and playmaking than you are his scoring, even though he can score. So I am curious to see if they play more straight up, and if they do focus more on the outside shooting. The Thunder have gotten where they are because of the brand of defense that they play. but they've also proven to be flexible. And Mark Daigneault has proven to be flexible with his rotations and with his as far as how he's going to play defense. Like he brought out the Alex Caruso on Jokic trump card in Game 7. Like we will see him, change if he feels like a change needs to be made. So I am curious to see if they kind of roll out what they've been doing Game 1, quarter 1, minute 1, but see how long that lasts if the Pacers start, getting hot from outside and start hitting some corner threes and the role players are stepping up and making those threes. If they switch things up and if they go smaller and if they play more straight up and if they focus on, the outside shooting. Very, very curious to see how they play that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the big questions for kind of the Thunder and Thunder fans going into this series is, do you see much double bigs? Because the matchup really doesn't seem like it's a great one for double bigs with Turner inside and you got Siakam at the 4.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting about this, and I could see both sides to the double bigs argument on this one particular thing, and that is rebounding. The Pacers are not a very good rebounding team. And this is one team where the Thunder should have an advantage as far as rebounding goes. But, you take Hartenstein out, that's a big part of your rebounding. So do you leave him in to give you that more of an edge on the rebounding? Offensive rebounding has been an issue, against this Thunder team. Pacers are not a very good offensive rebounding team. So I'm curious to see okay, I could see the argument, play Hartenstein more to give yourself more of an advantage on the boards. I could see the argument, hey, we might out-rebound this team anyways, even without Hartenstein, and then playing the single bigs give us so many more advantages and a better defense in so many other ways, so play less double bigs. I can see the argument both ways.
All right. The next matchup is the depth. Oklahoma City's depth versus Indiana's depth. And both teams do actually go deep into their bench. Indiana will play 8-9 guys. Thunder play 9-10 guys. But who do you give the edge in that?
Yeah, so these are the two deepest teams in the playoffs. I will go with the Thunder's depth because I think their top guys that they're playing off the bench are better than the Pacers' top guys. I like the Pacers' bench. I truly do. But Caruso and Kaysen in particular, the 6th and 7th guys for the Thunder. And I think the Thunder definitely settled on those guys as the top 7. Like it's the starters and Caruso and Kaysen. And then any given night, Aaron Wiggins or Isaiah Joe or Kenrich Williams or Jay Will might play 10 to 15 minutes. Any given matchup, any given game flow. But those 7, Caruso and Kaysen off the bench, have been complete game changers throughout this playoffs. So I will give the edge to the Thunder because not only do they have, I think, the better talent at the top of the bench, but I do think that they go deeper. Like, if Jay Will and Kenrich are like your 10th guys, I like the edge there. So I think they're deeper and I think their top depth is better.
Okay. So let's move on to the coaching matchup. You've got Mark Daigneault versus Rick Carlisle. Carlisle, a very seasoned coach. He's been in this situation multiple times. It's his second stint in Indiana. But as you noted, Mark has shown a willingness to adjust. He's made a lot of changes from game to game, even within games to adjust to what's happening in the game, rotations, calling out zones, box and ones, 2-3s, all kinds of things to really adapt to the matchups. But of course, you have Carlisle who's done this. He's also one of the best in-game managers in the NBA. Who do you give the edge to here?
I mean, this one's tough. I'll be honest. I think that Mark Daigneault is one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NBA right now. I truly believe that. He won NBA Coach of the Year last year for good reason. You could have made an argument for him this year, but nobody ever wins Coach of the Year 2 years in a row. I think that Mark Daigneault is that guy. But Rick Carlisle, I've thought, has been one of the best NBA coaches for decades now. Like he is so good. And the Thunder remember him while he was with the Mavs and that Western Conference Finals. And that was one of the teams, like if you look back in NBA history, like underdog teams that weren't supposed to win a title, that won a title. Rick Carlisle was the coach of one of those teams. So I would give the edge to Mark Daigneault and the Thunder just because I think that Mark Daigneault is that good and he's proven to be. But I mean, we're talking about slim pickings here as far as the edge because I think that Rick Carlisle is that good as well. These are two of the best head coaches in the league.
The last matchup I have is sort of Oklahoma City's home court advantage and its fan base versus Indiana's home court advantage and its fan base. And as you noted, kind of at the top here, we're talking about two small market teams, and two fan bases that, are really, really, keyed in and glued to their teams. And as far as like looking at percentages of the fans that wear the shirts, these are probably two of the better markets where the fans in the arena actually put on the shirts, although I think Oklahoma City has the edge there. But OKC at home, Indiana at home, who has the edge?
Yeah. For all like the advanced stats and like you're looking at like LeBron and WAR and Raptor and DPM and all those things, the only stat you need to look at is who wears the t-shirts. And it's the Thunder fans and it's the Pacers fans, and they are in the finals. That's the only stat you need to look at. These are two of the, I'm so happy for both of these teams. Neither of these teams has ever won a title. Both of them have been once before. The Pacers, I believe, in 2000. The Thunder, of course, in 2012, not counting the Sonics history because neither Thunder fans nor Sonics fans want to count the Sonics history and their championship. Those are separate things. Both these fans are so passionate. Both these fans provide such huge home court advantages. I think they've been the two best home court advantages in these playoffs. But like you said, pound for pound, I think the Thunder fans wear the t-shirts a little bit better. And I think they are louder, as loud as the Pacers home court is, and it's very loud. I still got to give the edge to the Thunder fans in this one. But that is no disrespect to the Pacers fans. They are excellent. That's how good the Thunder fans are and how great the home court advantage is.
Well, I think that's what all the fans in Oklahoma City wanted to hear. But we'll get to predictions. But before we ask for your prediction on this series, let's recap who has the advantage in each of these matchups that we ran through. Of course, in the SGA versus Halliburton matchup, obvious Oklahoma City on that one. J-Dub versus Siakam, you gave the slight edge to OKC. And Miles Turner versus Chet Holmgren also gave the edge to OKC. You gave the edge to the Thunder in the offense versus Indiana defense category. You gave Oklahoma City the edge in the Oklahoma City defense versus Indiana offense category. You gave the Thunder the edge in the depth versus depth matchup. And then in the coaching matchup, you gave the Thunder the edge and Mark Dagnall. And then lastly, in the fan bases, no surprise there, Oklahoma City has the edge there. So you gave the Thunder the edge in every single category. Feel good about that right now?
Well, no, I don't feel good about that. I feel like didn't I say Siakam and Dove was a push though? Like, I feel like that was more of a
but you gave the slight edge. You gave the slight edge to Thunder.
I did. Okay. But look, there is a reason why the Thunder are the favorites. Zooming out and looking big picture, saying advantage to the Thunder in every single category makes me sound like a homer reporter. That is not how I'm trying to come off here. But if you look at those, every single one of those individually, I do think that I made the right call. I would stick by those things that I said. Here we are, 5 minutes later, I'm sticking by it. So yeah, I'll stand by it, even though it sounds like a homer reporter thing. I think it just speaks to this Thunder roster, and the Thunder fan base and the Thunder coaching have all been elite this year, quite honestly.
Well, let's talk predictions then. Let's start with game one, and then we'll do a series prediction. So game one is on Thursday night. Who do you have winning game one, Thunder or Pacers?
Game ones can be weird. And look, the Pacers upset some teams that they weren't supposed to upset in game ones in these playoffs. But this Thunder home court is so huge, this advantage. The only game they've lost at home this season in the playoffs was that game one versus Denver, which they really shouldn't have won. They were up 9 with like 3 minutes left, and they lost off, fouling up 3 and the Aaron Gordon buzzer beater to win it. That's the only game they've lost at home in the playoffs. And their point differential in wins is like 27, 28 points per win at home in the playoffs. They are just a different animal at home. So I got to go with the Thunder in game one. I think they're the better team, and they have the home court, so I like them to win game one.
And then how about for the series? What's your prediction?
I keep going back and forth between Thunder and 5 or Thunder and 6. I did Locked On Thunder with Rylan Stiles last night, and I said Thunder and 5, so I'll say Thunder and 6 here.
Okay, not a Thunder in 4, which I'm seeing a little bit of that out there. But yeah, most of the predictions are coming in with Thunder in 5 or Thunder in 6. I'll take the other side of that. I'll say Thunder in 5. I really wanted to say Thunder in 5 against the Wolves, but the Wolves just felt like they had so much talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and you had kind of that key star player in an Ant, and Randall had been having an incredible playoff series. But I think the Thunder of Game 1 against the Nuggets is a very different team than the Thunder going into Game 1 of the finals. They're a mature team, they're focused, and the top guys, SGA, J-Dub, and Chet, are at the top of their games right now. The Thunder are peaking at the right time. So, as much as it's scary to feel this confident going into the NBA Finals, it's hard not to be this confident. But anything can happen, and the Pacers are a good team. So it is definitely worth watching. And for the fans who are like, two small market teams, I'm not going to watch that, they will miss out.
They will absolutely miss out. This is a series that fans of basketball, like, rip away city names on the jersey, rip away, superstar names just because LeBron or Curry or KD or Giannis aren't there. You have the MVP. You have Tyrese Halliburton, who is a 25-year-old superstar in the making. You have great, secondary stars like Dub and Chet that are up and coming. You have Siakam, who's an all-star, and Miles Turner, who's a really nice third. But more than anything, you have two teams who play high effort, high energy, high IQ basketball on both sides of the court. You have two great coaches. These teams are coached so well. The chemistry, the home fans for both teams, just all top notch. I'm so excited for this finals. If you don't watch, you're missing out on some great basketball.
Yeah, and the button I'll put on that is this is a finals between two teams that are non-luxury tax paying teams. So these are teams that were kind of built, quote, the right way, right? They weren't just going out there and paying massive contracts to the top players and, assimilating super teams. Both teams were sort of built organically and built smartly to get to where they are. And I think in the NBA should be rooting for more teams like
100%. 100%. The Thunder should have been playing on Christmas. Obviously, we all know that. The Thunder should have had more national TV games, even though they had quite a few. They should have had more based on what they did the season before. The NBA has dropped the ball on marketing this Thunder team because you have a guy who is fifth in MVP and then second in MVP in back-to-back seasons. And it was very obvious and apparent that Dub and Chet were rising stars, and this was a rising team. And you've seen them kind of try to scramble and market this team throughout the season because they realized what they had. This will be a great marketing tool for the Thunder, the fact that they're in the NBA Finals. And I think going into next season, they'll realize, okay, this team is getting a Christmas Day game. They're going to get more national TV games. We can market this team. They're fun. The chemistry is there. They have stars. They have star power. Look, Oklahoma City, it's the same market as they were in 2012. KD and Russ and Harden were like superstars, and they had the wattage and fans watched, not just in Oklahoma City. They were one of the highest rated teams, and they got those national. It just depends on how you're marketing. This team can be marketed and should be marketed, and the Pacers as well. Not to brush over what the Pacers are doing. They have a budding superstar, like I said, and they play such a fun brand of basketball. So for both of these teams, I think that this is great that they are going to be on the stage and getting the recognition that they deserve. And hopefully they get that big bump going into next season. And the NBA realizes, hey, we don't have to focus all our marketing on the LA teams and LeBron and Curry and KD. We've got some special stuff going on here in OKC and Indiana, but especially OKC.
Brandon, thanks for breaking down the NBA Finals matchup between the Thunder and the Pacers. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how good it feels to say the Thunder are in the NBA Finals, and it'll be fun talking with you over the course of these next 4 or 5, maybe more games of the NBA Finals as we break down the first time the Thunder have been in the Finals since that 2012 season that you noted.
Yeah, this it's good to be back, and I gotta say, from a personal note, I feel very fortunate to be covering a team and to be able to go to an NBA Finals, for a team. There are reporters out there who have probably been covering basketball for 30 or 40 years who don't get this opportunity. It's rare for a reporter. It's rare for fans. So enjoy it. I am definitely enjoying it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, host of the podcast, and he's Brandon Rahbar, Daily Thunder beat writer. If you enjoy the show, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Thunder podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any of our future NBA Finals coverage. And if you like what you hear, do us a favor and leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll be back in your feed soon.